What's going on? It's your man Eric, aka the Vaping Politician, for Phoenix Vapor, PhoenixVapor.com, and Squonk America. And today, for you, we have for review the Bohr Flask Pod system. Now, Bohr recently came out with the Chaser mod and the Chaser kit. They're fairly new in the vape game. They're just starting to get some products out there and gain traction. And I know that everybody's getting sick of pod after pod after pod being released by company after company after company. We are seeing a lot of people imitate each other and some redundancy. We're also seeing a lot of innovation and new ideas in the pod game at the same time. Now, this one in particular, the Flask as they call it, reminded me of a story from back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So when I was in my early 20s, I think I was 21, 22 at the time, I went on a road trip with a few buddies. Now, this wasn't a road trip just for fun. No. This was a road trip to go help a buddy's parents a few states over move into their new house. And on the way, we stopped at a college in Spokane, Washington, and we went to a party at a dorm. But we stayed for entirely too long, and we had to dip out before the party ended, and we were running behind. Now, as we were leaving, my homeboy who we went to visit in the first place handed me a flask. And you can imagine leaving a party with the flask, what was in that flask. So we start driving, we're on the road again. The flask eventually gets killed off. Well, everyone else is asleep, but me and the driver were still awake. And no, the driver was not drinking. Do not drink and drive. And I had to pee. Well, the driver's like, Bro, we're already behind. We can't stop. Can you go in the Pepsi bottle? Because we had this Pepsi bottle that we were taking turns peeing in. So this Pepsi bottle was damn near full. And I knew I needed some room to pee because I had to pee pretty dang bad. So, thinking quickly, I took that flask and it had this little funnel type thing and I poured some of the pee into the flask. I figured we'll wash this thing later. Made room in the bottle, took my pee, went to sleep, woke back up and look in the passenger seat. And one of my homeboys is drinking out of the flask. Suddenly he spits everywhere, all over the car, and throws the flask in the air, and there is just pee flying everywhere in that car. And his spit had also gotten all over us. And it was quite the scene as we're driving at 70 miles per hour and suddenly all of us are covered in piss. Now, this isn't my only getting covered in piss while in the car story, but we'll save the other one for another time. And for now, we're gonna go ahead and show this to you. So, let's go ahead. Go down low. Take a look at the Flask Pod system from Bohr. Then we're gonna come back up top and you and we're gonna have a little talk about it. Alright, here we are down low with the Bohr Flask Pod system, and there's the outside of that packaging. Go ahead and pause that screen if there's something your heart desires to see. But as for me, we're gonna open this baby up and show you what we got going on inside. So inside we're gonna get a user's manual, a warranty card, and a warning card that basically says, please, whatever you do, don't be a dumbass. We're gonna get a USB cable, a Stop That Alimony Payment starter kit, a 0.4 mesh and a 1.2 ceramic coil, and we're gonna get our Bohr flask. And let's go ahead and look closer at this guy. And on the front of that device, it's going to say Bohr up here. This is going to be your OLED screen, and the rest of that is going to be blank. This is aluminum. On the side, you're going to see an airflow hole plus your adjustment buttons, plus and minus. On the back, it's completely blank with the exception of a Bohr logo along the bottom. On the other side, you're going to have another airflow hole and a recessed USB port. And on the bottom, you're going to have some venting holes, some giggly bloop, and it's going to say Made in China. Now, to take that pod out, we're just going to pull on that mouthpiece. Now that pod has these little notches on the side that lock into the device. There's a look at that mouthpiece, and if you look underneath on the bottom of the pod, your coil is going to press fit into here, so your mouthpiece is sitting directly above your coil. And over here, much like the recent Geek Vape Frenzy, this is where you fill that pod. Now down in the device, you'll see those contact points, and that's the airflow holes we were talking about earlier. Now what's pretty unique is the OLED screen, which has the Saga chipset, which apparently is a phone chipset that has been repurposed for this device. We're going to turn the screen on by pressing the screen. So press it 5 times. Now that screen turns on. You're going to have your ohms here, your wattage here, your power mode here, and a battery indicator here. Now to switch modes, we're going to click that 3 times. To adjust the power, we're obviously going to hit the adjustment buttons. When you hold it down, it goes in single increments, does not round robin, and when you just press it, it goes down in 0.1 increments. Now we can vape this guy when you have it charging, and it does have all the protections that we could hope for with something with a chipset. So without any further ado, let's go ahead, go up top, and talk about the Bohr Flask Pod system. Alright, so we are back up top with the Bohr Flask Pod system, and without any further hesitation, let's go ahead and jump right into that scoring. And we're going to do things a little bit different than I've done them traditionally in the past. And this is because I'm trying to make the editing process a little easier, a little quicker. That way we can get out more content for you guys, and when my schedule changes soon, so I can still keep that consistent video content rolling out. So we're going to talk about all the pros and all the cons, and then at the end of that, after we've done all that, we're going to score the categories individually and then do the overall score.
So here we go.
So this device, the Flask, comes with the Saga Player chipset. The screen is fairly bright. We've got a battery indicator, a puff timer, 3 modes, wattage, voltage, and what they call play mode. And basically what play mode is, as they describe, is that when you put a coil in, the play mode kind of learns how you're vaping. And based on your draw time and the resistance, it changes that vape up for you. And essentially, it sounds a little bit like if replay mode learned how you vaped and then kind of kept it in that mode. That's how I understand it, at least. Now this guy goes from 1 to 20 watts. There's 2 different ways to adjust the wattage. If you hold the buttons down, it goes in 1 watt increments, and if you press it one at a time, it goes in 0.1 watt increments. Now there were some things missing that I wish I would have seen. They didn't have a puff counter. This thing did not lock and unlock, and it did not round robin in terms of the wattage. It's got an 1150 mAh battery, and the battery life has been pretty damn good. In fact, I have not charged this in the week I've been using it. The ergonomics are definitely pretty good, especially because you can use it with either hand and have pretty good ergonomics. We had a recessed USB port. The pod locks in pretty well, and it doesn't strain on the device when you pull it out and put it in. Now, although the mouthpiece is not removable, it's definitely comfortable to use. The wattage adjustment buttons are pretty damn clicky, but the button on the front, this guy that is the actual fire button, yep, you saw that right. The chipset screen is also the fire button. That one has a little resistance to it. It's not so easy to push. I haven't had any leaking at all. The fill port is large, and the plug inside that fill port worked very well. Now aesthetically, it doesn't look bad at all. The finish was very even, but this is definitely a fingerprint and grease magnet. It definitely was showing up. You even saw that down low a little bit. Because we already have this bore on the back, I don't think this one up front was necessarily needed, and it takes a little bit away from the aesthetic in my opinion. And the filling method for the pod, which is similar to the Geek Vape Frenzy, left much to be desired. I do not like having to take the pod out, flip it upside down, pull out the plug in order to fill it, and the way you insert the coil means that if you have to change it with a full pod, you got to make sure you're holding it upside down. Although I wouldn't call that a con, I would just make sure you're paying attention to it. The flavor was surprisingly good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, to be completely honest. It had a decently warm vape with a decently good throat hit, and the airflow is pretty smooth and is somewhat dependent upon which coil you're using, but other than that, and the fact that you can cover the airflow holes on the outside here, the airflow is not adjustable, which I think should be standard with pod systems that have a chipset. And if they wanted to do this kind of airflow, they could have had a slider or something perhaps that maybe clicked down at 4 different levels on each side to adjust that airflow. The pod has a 2 milliliter capacity, and right now they have 2 different coils, a 0.4 mesh coil and a 1.2 ceramic coil. Now the ceramic coil is meant for mouth to lung, while the 0.4 is meant for more direct lung, restricted direct lung, but direct lung vaping. Now my biggest concern with the coils is the fact that I think they will be kind of hard to come by. Not a lot of shops carry the Bohr devices that I've been to. Now online you should be able to find them, but if you're in a pinch and need one right away, I don't know where you're going to be able to get them. Additionally, the 2 coils they have are 0.4 and 1.2. I think it would be good to have something in between those 2 numbers because those are quite wide apart. It's made out of aluminum alloy, and we have a recessed USB.
A recessed USB for you and for me.
And the device just feels very durable in the hand. So now it's time for those scores to pop up. For key features, which in this case was chipset to me, I gave this guy a 4 out of 5, and design and aesthetics and flavor also both got 4s out of 5. Now for airflow and coil and pod options, I gave this guy a 3, and let me show you how that airflow sound and what you see. And finally, for stability, we gave this a 4 out of 5. And to expound on that one individually alone for just a second, I didn't really point out too many stability issues with this guy in that whole pro and con thing that I was doing. But what does kind of worry me is that the fire button is also the chipset screen, and I don't know. I just don't think that's a good thing. I think that could cause the screen to break down quicker than it would if there was a separate fire button. So this got 22 out of 30 in the category scoring for an average of 3.66, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with this guy. I didn't have very high expectations, but I'm giving it an overall score of 4 out of 5. Now, Bohr did send me this for review. That didn't change my opinion one damn bit. Y'all know that. And they sent me a second one to give away, brand new, in the box, and I will be giving that one away to my patrons. Now, with the shop closing, it's made things a little bit different with giveaways, but I am going to try to make sure that non-patrons get something once a week on the live show that's given away to them as well, but everything else will likely be given away to patrons. And if you like this video, then go on and like this video. Comment down below if you got questions, comments, concerns, or if you've ever drinking pee too. Subscribe if you want to see more of what we've got in store. But if you want to know when videos are posted right away, don't forget to ring-a-ding-ding that bell. And if you got a little time on your hands, don't forget to check out one of these other videos. It's been the Vaping Politician for Phoenix Vapor, PhoenixVapor.com, and Squonk America. Now let's see how she vapes. Now I'm signing out. Peace.